Imagine, if you will, the rumble of Cunningham V8s, along with a rabid pack of Porsche 356s, flying through the hilly terrain just outside Carpentersville, the cars climbing up and down while swinging through the twisting east side of the course and compressing almost all the way to the ground as they take the Monza-style banking in the last turn. This was what the opening race in September of 1958 at Meadowdale International Raceway was like. Throughout its lifespan, Meadowdale hosted the SCCA, USAC, AMA, and even karting and drag racing. Meadowdale was originally constructed by a housing developer in the hopes of attracting more families to the new subdivision he was constructing. Carpentersville was experiencing the effects of a post-war housing boom, much like the rest of the country, and a racetrack was a great place to take the family for a day out and a picnic while young hot shoe racers flew by on their roadsters. The course was designed to take after famous European road courses, the most obvious example of which was the long, high-banked Monza-style turn which ended the course. Meadowdale's life as a racetrack began in 1958 with an SCCA weekend. It is estimated that 75,000 to 150,000 people attended the small regional race. Unfortunately, this also meant that 75 to 150,000 people were coated with dust because the ground had not been reseeded after construction, and there was loose dirt everywhere. Even more unfortunate, there were several major crashes, including one death. A side effect of the track's design was that it was too difficult for many of the amateur drivers, and when they did make a mistake, there were very limited runoff areas and earth embankments which lined the whole course. These problems persisted through the 60s as the track management did not have the capital to fix them. They didn't even have enough resources to keep the track in the same condition it was when it opened. As time went on, it was also discovered that the asphalt on the banked turn was melting and sliding down during the hot summers, so it would need to be repaved often. As the decade went on, none of these problems were fixed, so less events were scheduled there, which then led to less capital to fix the problems, which led to even less events. This cycle went on until July 1968, when the SCCA brought the Trans Am Series to Meadowdale in a last-ditch attempt to put Meadowdale back on the map. Unfortunately, this did not work. Later that year, the glorious banked final turn was flattened, and the last event held was a drag race in 1969. The track then ceased operations. There is still hope for someone who wants to drive the track, though. To my knowledge, there are a few different versions of Meadowdale, which can be downloaded and used in the sim racing game R-Factor. Obviously, it's not the same as seeing the races in person, but after reviewing the gameplay footage and comparing it to what I saw on my visit to the track, it seems to be fairly accurate. This is an interesting example of how sim racing can be used to make racing more accessible. It can bring back old abandoned tracks, which have a strong legacy and a vibrant online community, back to life. After the racing stopped, the property fell into disrepair. It became a dumping ground, and whatever structures remained became targets for vandals. Nature began to take over what remained of the track. Tree roots broke apart the asphalt, and weeds grew through the cracks. The only permanent structure that remained was the silo inside Turn 2. In 1994, Kane County Forest Preserve District and the Dundee Park District purchased the land and began a large cleanup project. The property is now known as Raceway Woods and is a valuable part of the community. Upon my visit in November 2018, there were paths paved most of the way around the original circuit right on top of the old asphalt. There are also lots of paths on the property which can be used as mountain biking or hiking trails. The silo has also been repainted and now bears the original pure gasoline sponsorship as it did in its heyday. Even on the day that I went, when it was around 30 degrees and cloudy, there were still people out walking their dogs, jogging, or just spending time outside. I would also be remiss if I didn't mention the park employees maintaining a few of the trails who I talked to when I was there. It is clear that Meadowdale's racing days are over. However, in this case, it's not completely terrible. The park gives the local community a place to relax and enjoy nature. It also gives race historians and people who went to the races the chance to walk the track, whereas if it had not been turned into a park, it would have decayed into obscurity, and the legacy of Meadowdale would have been all but forgotten.